My name is Hannah and I am a nutrition educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County. Today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my favorite recipes for a Tuesday night, and that is the taco bowl. I love it because it is a great opportunity to be creative. I can use whatever is left over in my fridge and I'll come up with a different meal every single Tuesday with the same basic recipe. So you can use whatever form of protein you want. I'm going to be using ground turkey today, but you can use leftover steak, some shrimp, any other type of seafood would be great. Whatever you have around, even beans would be an excellent vegetarian option. Then you put some nice seasonings on it, and then you just put it on whatever veggies you have around. I have some leftover spinach and romaine lettuce from a salad a few nights ago, so that's going to form the base of my bowl. Then you can really just be creative in what you have in your fridge. So let's go ahead and get started. First, gather all your ingredients. I'm going to start by heating some oil over medium-high heat. In this case, I'm just using canola oil. You could use vegetable oil, whatever you have around. I like using canola oil because it's a pretty neutral taste and it won't burn. It has a high smoke point, so it'll have to get to a really high temperature before it burns. Okay. I can tell that my oil's warm when it moves around my pan pretty easily. It's got a little bit to go. I also want to see a shimmer in the surface, which you can kind of start seeing in this area maybe. But once it starts running around my pan easily, I'm gonna go ahead and add my onions. So you don't ever want to start heating up your pan without anything in it. That could cause your pan to warp. Once my oil is heated up, I'm gonna add in some chopped onions. If you are interested in seeing tips for chopping an onion, go ahead and check out the videos on our Facebook page. All right, it's moving around pretty easily now. I like cooking with cast iron because I feel like it gives me a little bit of an exercise when I'm cooking. That's always good. All right, so nice and warm. I'm gonna add in my onions. I should hear a little bit of a sizzle. Yep, there's a little bit of one. I don't want it too hot, so that's perfect. Just gonna spread them out, get them all coated with the oil. You don't want to put too many onions in or use too small of a pan that they won't be able to spread out. This will kind of prevent them from caramelizing and giving so much of their flavor. Make sure those are all spread out pretty well, and then I'm going to go work on our taco seasoning. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own taco seasoning. I like making my own taco seasoning because it's cheaper than when I would purchase a package at a store, and I'll get a whole lot more of it. I can also control what ingredients go into it. So this makes sure that my family is not consuming too much sodium, which can often come in those packaged products. And also, if we like certain flavors, my family likes a little more spicy food, so I'm going to add some more cayenne to my seasoning blend. So I like making it because I can customize it based on what I like. This is a fun activity to do with your kids, asking them to give the spices a smell, see if they like the smell and if they want to put more or less in there, and just really getting them connecting with all of the senses while cooking. It's a great way. So I'm going to start out with my chili powder. It calls for 2 tablespoons. So for my herbs and my spices, I'm just going to measure directly over the container that I'm mixing in. This is because if there's a little bit more or less of one flavor, it's not going to make a huge difference in the taste. And I know I'm going to use up all of this, so it won't be a wasteful addition. All right, then it calls for 1 tablespoon of cumin. If you're baking or something like that where precise measurements matter, or if you're adding salt to something, make sure that you're measuring outside of the dish that you're mixing in, because those are things where if you add too much, it can really affect your end product. All right, so there we go. Cumin was a little bit packed down. Oop. There's a little bit more than extra, but sneak a little bit back in. All right, and then I'm gonna need 1 teaspoon, excuse me, of onion powder. Got that right here. And 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. So I'm trying not to double dip my measuring implements back into the spice jars. If it's a clean one, I'll put it in, but for the rest of them, I'm just trying to pour it out on them. You could use, if you have multiple measuring spoon sets, you could use different ones, or you could wash them in between uses. You know, my method's not working out really well for me right now, but it prevents me from having to do more dishes, so I'm willing to take this risk. All right, so that was my garlic. Then I'm gonna add in 1/2 teaspoon of my crushed red pepper. Right, so since I mentioned before, my family likes spicy food, so I'm actually gonna do 2 of those in there. Right, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. That was that first one I opened up over here. And then a little bit of cayenne pepper powder for a little bit more spiciness. And so I just kind of eyeball it, just do a few shakes. I'm gonna do a little bit of black pepper as well. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Maybe about 8 cranks or so. It's probably about 1/2 teaspoon or a teaspoon, somewhere in between there. So you can see this taco seasoning recipe is very flexible. If you are missing one of the spices, or feel free to smell your other spices, see if there's one that smells kind of similar or you think would taste good, or just go ahead and omit it. There is a ton of flavoring in this already. So you don't need to be worrying if you're missing one or the other. This is just a really great starting off point. So there I have my seasoning mix. So I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons in this recipe, so I will have a little bit left over. All right, so my onions are looking good over here. And give them a little bit of a stir. They're smelling amazing. They're getting a little bit of color on them, on some of them, but I would like them to be a little bit more opaque, a little bit more translucent. I'm just going to spread these out again and give them a little bit longer. I'm trying not to stir them too much. That way they have some time to really kind of cook and caramelize and get those good colors on them. So while we're waiting for these to cook up a little bit more, I want to talk for a minute about the type of meat I will be using. So like I mentioned before, I'm using ground turkey. I like ground turkey because it's a much leaner meat than usually a red meat, so it's going to be lower in saturated fat, which is better for our heart health. But I wanted to draw your attention specifically to these numbers on the package. And so these are going to be on all of the ground meats that you see at the store, whether it's turkey or chicken or beef or pork, it's going to have these numbers on them. So what it means is 94% of what is in here, so the 94% of this pound is going to be the lean meat, which is going to be the kind of like the substance, the protein, the meaty part. And then 6% of it is fat. So the fat, because it is saturated fat, since it's from an animal, that is something we do want to be decreasing to make ourselves a little bit healthier. So when you can, looking for this number to be lower and this number to be higher. In general, you want it to be at least 85% lean, and anything above that is just less fat and a little more healthier. The more lean meats can be more expensive. So if you are looking for you're shopping on a budget, there are a lot of ways that you can still decrease the amount of fat that you're intaking. So say you get some ground beef and it is 85% lean and 15% fat. In that case, I'll show you when we're cooking. You could just go ahead, after you finish cooking the meat, you could pull it out of the pan and drain the fat off. You could also rinse it under hot water. That will help melt the fat off and then decrease the amount that you're eating overall, which is a good thing. So there are other strategies if you can't get the more lean. So just trying in little small swaps in all the ways that we can to make slightly healthier choices will really give us big rewards in increasing our health in the long term. All right, so these onions are looking really great. I like how they're smelling. I like the color they are. I think those look just fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my meat in. So I have clean hands. Just gonna go ahead and dump it in like that. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go wash my hands extra well because I just touched raw meat. All right, so now that my hands are clean, I can touch my cooking utensils again. I'm just gonna start to break it up. So just kind of smushing it together. We want this broken up into small pieces so it gets thoroughly cooked through. And I want the onions to also be incorporated for maximum flavor. So now it's a little bit smushed up and together. I'm just gonna let it sit and kind of cook like this before I mix it up anymore. And because there is raw meat on my cooking utensil, I'm just gonna leave it in the pan. It's got enough oil on it and this edge isn't especially hot, so I'm not worried about it burning. If you are, you could set it aside in a designated place and then swap out utensils or go ahead and wash it at this time. We just wanna make sure that nothing that touches raw meat will then go on to touch our cooked meat. So then to help with the cooking process, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of water. I'm also gonna go ahead and add my 2 tablespoons of spices at this time. So I'm adding 2 tablespoons there. Like I mentioned before, you could totally make this recipe using whatever source of protein you like. You can check out on our webpage, I did this recipe using lentils. You could even, as I recommend in that video, do something that's maybe 50% meat, 50% lentils. You get all the great health benefits of lentils and beans, which are gonna be lots of fiber, lots of nutrients, lots of protein, and they're a lot cheaper. So they can also really help stretch your meat budget a little bit further and still giving you a really delicious, hearty meal. Alright. So this is looking really good. You'll notice now that I've added the spices, it's already looking brown in some places that aren't cooked. So that's why for this recipe, it's really important to know your internal cooking temperatures. It's going to be hard to take it on this because it's going to be such small pieces, but I want to make sure that this is getting cooked thoroughly and I'm not being deceived by the spices turning it a color that I think means it's done. And go ahead and give this some time to cook. All right, so you can see I broke it down a little bit more. Kind of making sure all pieces are even size. My water has evaporated here. I think it's about done. I'm gonna try to find a big piece and go ahead and take the temperature. No, I think this one, and I'm just gonna try to stab right in the center there. So we're looking for 165, and I'm gonna keep it close to the pan so it's not cooling, but it's giving me an accurate reading. All right, so not quite done yet. Because the water has evaporated, I am gonna add a little bit more so it can continue to cook without starting to stick to the pan, as you see right there. Just gonna add, I poured a lot in here, but I'm just gonna add a little bit. This will be kind of good. Once you add the water, you can kind of scrape up all the brown bits. That will give it a little bit more flavor too. All right, so let me see if I can find another big piece. All right, I'm just gonna let it cook for a few seconds. Before I find my next big piece, I'm gonna make sure to sanitize my thermometer because it probably has some raw meat germs on the end because those weren't killed in the cooking off yet since it wasn't to temp. So I will be right back. All right, so hopefully this is the charm. I should have left one big tester piece ready. All right, now here we go. Go ahead. I just want to go right in the middle of it. Oh, and there we go. It got hot pretty quick. The addition of water can really help speed up the cooking process as well. All right, so now our ground protein is done. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it from the heat so it stops cooking and doesn't dry out. While my meat is cooking, I like to take the time to look through my fridge and see what I can use as toppings for my taco bowl. So in general, I like to create a whole taco bar that has all of these toppings laid out. That way each family member can really customize their own bowl based on what they like to eat. So in general, I like to start with a nice vegetable base that everything can then build upon. So I've offered some suggestions for what you could do instead of a spinach romaine base, but it's really just a wonderful time to be creative and use up what you have in your fridge. This way you can have taco bowl night every Tuesday and you don't have to worry about it getting boring.